What's going on? Alex here, and today I'm going to talk about dual registered financial advisors and why you shouldn't work with one. I'm going to start off by giving you some background info, and then I'm going to give you an example which I think is going to drive the point home pretty well. So in the financial services industry, there's two major business models, right? There's the brokerage model, where someone makes a commission for selling you a financial product. And then there's the fee-only model, where there's a fee charged for the service of advising you on what products you may want to buy, and there's no commission in that business model. So the difference is that over here as a broker, you're making a commission, which means that there's a possibility that if product A pays 3% and if product B pays 5%, you may recommend product B even though product A is the best for your client. And this happens all the time. Now, under the fee-only model, the difference is that the idea there is that since you're not making a commission, you don't have a bias to one product over another, so you can actually advise your client without being swayed by all of the kickbacks and all the other dollars that one mutual fund may give you that another one won't. And as a fee-only advisor, you're basically, in most situations, bound to be what's known as a fiduciary. When you're a fiduciary, that's a high legal standard. That means you're putting your client's interests first. That means that if product A is better for them, then you're legally obligated to recommend product A over B, regardless of any other factors. Now, when you're a broker, you're not bound to that fiduciary standard. You're bound by what's known as the suitability standard, which just means if a product is suitable, you can recommend it, even though it may not be the best and you may be being paid more for that one than recommending another one. That's the major difference. So those are the two major business models. Now there's also a third model that's supposed to be a hybrid of a broker and a fee-only advisor, and that's known as dual registration. So you can have a business where you're a broker under XYZ Securities Incorporated, and you're a fee-only financial planner under XYZ Fee-Only Planning Incorporated. So in that respect, you as the client have to figure out who at any particular point you're dealing with. Are you talking to the broker right now, or are you talking to the fee-only financial advisor? And trying to separate the two becomes very difficult. And a lot of the dual registered financial advisors out there will say, well, Alex, I have a separate entity for my insurance business, and I have a separate entity for my financial planning business, and I'm a broker for the insurance, and I'm a fee-only planner on that side, so we're good. The question I have is, when you're making a financial plan under the fee-only entity, are you not mentioning insurance? Are you excluding insurance from a financial plan for a client? I have a feeling that there's going to be insurance included in that financial plan, and you'd be more than happy to sell it to them on the brokerage side. That's why it's murky, and that's why I don't believe that that is a good business model, because as a client, you don't even know which one you're dealing with. And I think that in some ways may be worse than dealing with just a straight out broker where you know they're making a commission and you can have your guard up a little bit to make sure you don't get screwed. Another thing dual registered financial advisors will say is like, well, we disclose everything to the client. And the concept of disclosure has become a laughingstock in the financial services industry, because companies have realized that if you over-disclose, if you basically give somebody a 200-page disclosure document, you can ensure that they're going to read exactly none of those pages. And that's what happens. So when a client receives a 57-page document and it discloses on page 37 in paragraph 8 that there's a dual registration at play, I can assure you nobody knows that it's there. I mean, you could put a pornographic picture in the middle of that document and nobody will ever find it, because they don't read it. And advisors who are duly registered know this, and they use this to their advantage. So that's why the whole disclosure argument doesn't hold water. Now, the example that I want to give to tie this all together is as follows. Let's say you're looking for a daycare provider for your child, and you find one, you show up, and you see that it's a nice establishment, and the guy tells you, well, look at this, I am a registered daycare provider. And it looks great, they have a certificate on the wall and everything. And then the next sentence they tell you, I'm also a registered sex offender. Now, are you going to be inclined to leave your kid at that establishment? Are you going to be comfortable with the fact that you're only getting the registered daycare provider part of that deal and nothing else? I wouldn't. And that's why I think it's very necessary to have clear delineation between what kind of professional you're dealing with at any particular point. And I wish I could make the case, I wish I could wrap this video up with the answer in terms of how can you avoid dual registered people who are trying to sell you commission products under the guise of fee-only planning. And there's no surefire way. In 2018, it is so difficult to differentiate which firms are fee-only and actually are fee-only and which firms are fee-only as kind of one of their businesses and there's a bunch of commission businesses that are connected to it, that there's really not a clear way to figure it out by looking at an SEC website, by looking at the advisor's website, and so forth. It's so difficult these days if you're working with somebody who's duly registered to see if at any point you're being serviced under the suitability standard or the fiduciary standard, that it's become a science project just to get down to the facts. I've actually thought of a way that I think is foolproof in terms of identifying which kind of advisor you're dealing with. And that's simply have them draft you an email saying that they do not make any commissions, kickbacks, fees, or any other form of compensation from the sale of financial products whatsoever. See if they'll put that in an email. And also, have them include in there that they will operate as a fiduciary at all times with respect to all matters that pertain to you. Now, I'm not an attorney. That's not a legal document, so I don't know if it holds any water legally. But I can assure you that's going to help weed out some of those people who claim to be fee-only when in reality that's just the way they get clients like you into the door so they can sell you all sorts of other products on top of that. So use that email to your advantage. Have them send it to you. I guarantee that if you go to 10 financial advisors and ask all of them for that email, that'll weed out at least 8 of them. So you'll know that the ones remaining are more likely to be able to work in your favor instead of being incentivized by all sorts of kickbacks and things like that. Now, the other thing is that there are websites out there like Brightscope, for example, that include information on financial advisors and their business models and so forth, and some will actually identify whether they're duly registered or not. But you have to be careful because the information on these sites sometimes isn't updated very frequently because they rely on the regulatory filings and so forth, and they get information from different places. So you can't rely on that 100%. The other thing is that a lot of that information is outdated. So for a while after I left the firm where we managed millions of dollars, it still stated that I managed millions of dollars, which was not the case. So you want to take all of that information that's from third parties with a grain of salt. You want to do your own research, and you want to be able to at least be confident that the financial advisor that you're working with has a business model that you're aware of and that you understand. And I'm not trying to demonize people who make commission. Now, there's some businesses where it's necessary for people to work on commission. I understand that. Sometimes it's a necessary evil, so to speak. But when I walk into a Honda dealership, I understand that the person there selling me the car works on commission, and it makes sense. But they don't call themselves a vehicle advisor. They call themselves a salesperson, which aligns with the business model. I understand that the person there is selling me a car because they need to eat. And that Honda salesman isn't going to say, well, you really need a Lexus. And I get that, and I come in there with that expectation. But the thing is when you work with a financial advisor and you have no way of knowing what business model they have, in 2018, that's scary. And I've seen so many people screwed over by unscrupulous advisors who use that fee-only model as the bait. That's not their primary business. They just formed that entity because they can take advantage of dual registration, and then they just wheel them in, one after the other. So keep that in mind. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to say that dual registered financial advisors are as bad as registered sex offenders. I'm saying they're worse.
I hate mails are coming.
Now, the thing is, because I'm not connected to any company whatsoever, I don't make commissions from anybody, kickbacks from anybody whatsoever, I have the freedom to tell clients exactly what's good and exactly what isn't. And from a financial perspective, it makes no difference to me whether a client goes with A, B, or C. My only job is to make sure that I provide the best possible advice. And that's the only motivation that I have. And when I deal with the financial professional, I want that to be the case from them working with me as well. So that's all I have to say about that. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Thanks for watching.